When I first met my wife, Sarah, it felt like finding the missing piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was putting together. She was my best friend, my confidant, the person I could laugh with, dream with, and face the world beside me. Our wedding day felt like a promise that no matter what life threw at us, we'd always have each other. And for a while, that's exactly how it was. We were a team, unshakable. But things don't always stay the same, do they? 3 years into our marriage, I started to notice little changes. They were subtle at first, unless you were really paying attention. She'd be glued to her phone more often. I remember one night when I suggested we watch a new episode of her favorite series together, something we used to do all the time. I thought it might help us reconnect. She said she was too tired and went to bed early. But later, as I walked past our bedroom, I could hear her laughing at something on her phone. I stood there for a moment, feeling like an outsider in my own home. Then came the late nights. At first, it was once in a while meeting up with her friends, or so she said. I didn't think much of it. Everyone needs time with their friends, right? But then once in a while turned into a few times a week. And when she came home, she'd be quiet, keeping to herself. She started avoiding intimacy when I tried to initiate it, turning her back to me with a sigh, or saying she was too tired. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. But one night, as she sat scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I said, "Sarah, you seem numb lately. Is there something bothering you? Something I should know?" She didn't even look up at me. She just shook her head and said, "I'm fine. There's nothing wrong." Her words felt like a door slamming shut. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I knew she wasn't being honest. Something was wrong, I just didn't know what it was yet. As the weeks went by, she was coming home later and later. And I wasn't fine with this routine. One evening, when she said she was heading out to meet her friends, I decided to track her location. I had to. I needed to see these friends she was regularly spending time with. My marriage was on the line. Using the Find Me app on her iPhone, I followed her location. That's when I saw it. She didn't go to any of her friends' I know houses, and she wasn't at a restaurant like she claimed. Instead, she pulled up to a quiet residential street and parked in front of a modest-looking house. I stayed in my car, keeping my distance, but with my eyes locked on her every move. She got out, glanced around, and then walked up to the front door. A man opened the door, and my stomach twisted. He greeted her with a warm smile, pulling her into a hug. Then he gave her a quick peck, but it was enough. Enough to confirm what I had been dreading. They stood there for a moment, enough for me to get a few photos, before disappearing into the house together. I couldn't snap them hugging and pecking, but I was quick enough to get 2 of them in the same frame before they disappeared. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. I drove home that night in silence. But I wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, I kept an eye on her. Every time she said she was going out, I tracked her. Every time, she ended up in the same place, with the same man. I took more photos, documenting everything. I don't know why I didn't confront her right away. Maybe I was scared of what would happen if I did. Maybe I just wanted to be absolutely sure. The final straw came one night when she didn't come home until well past midnight. She didn't even bother texting me to say she'd be late. It was like she didn't care anymore. That was when I made up my mind. I wasn't going to wait for her to come clean. I was going to confront her, but I wanted to do it in a way she couldn't deny. I printed some of the photos and wrote a note. I slipped them into an envelope and placed it under her pillow. The note was simple, just 5 words. I hope it was worth it. Then, I went to bed and waited for her to come home. It was past midnight when I heard her come in. The door creaked softly, followed by the faint sound of her shoes being slipped off. She moved quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. I felt the bed shift as she got in. The room was dark, but I could sense her there, lying next to me. My heart pounded, though I forced myself to keep my breathing steady. I couldn't let her know I was awake. She adjusted her pillow, trying to get comfortable, when I heard her stop. A pause. Then, the soft rustle of paper. I didn't move, but I knew exactly what was happening. She had found the envelope. She used the light from her phone to read it. She was silent at first. I imagined her heart racing as she opened it. I heard the faint sound of the photos being shuffled and could almost picture her staring at them, trying to process what she was seeing. She must have read the note next because she let out a shaky breath. I can guess what she was thinking. How long had I known? What else did I know? She glanced over at me, probably checking if I was awake. I didn't move. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow. But I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake. I wanted to say something, to confront her right then and there. But I held back. Not yet. This moment wasn't for me, it was for her. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she had done. I wonder what was going through her head. Was she debating whether to wake me and confess, to throw herself at my mercy? Or was she already thinking of a way to cover her tracks, to find an excuse for what I had seen? I could feel her tossing and turning beside me for some time, the mattress shifting with every uneasy movement. Her restlessness spoke louder than words. But as she shifted, my thoughts went somewhere else. I couldn't stop replaying the past few months in my mind. The nights she came home late, claiming she was out with friends. The excuses, the dismissive responses when I asked if something was wrong. I had begged her to talk to me, to let me in on whatever was going on. I gave her so many chances to tell me the truth. Each time, she chose to lie. Each time, she chose him. Finally, after hours of turning and twisting, she fell asleep. Her breathing evened out, and the tension in her body relaxed. But for me, there was no relief. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man I used to be, the man who trusted, who believed in love without question. I thought about the promises we made on our wedding day, and how much I had fought to keep them. But staying now felt like letting go of the last shred of myself. I realized that if I stayed, I wouldn't just be living a lie. I'd be losing who I was. Staying would destroy what little of him was left. I couldn't let that happen. Around 5 a.m., I quietly slid out of bed, careful not to wake her. I moved through the house quickly but quietly. I grabbed a bag and packed a few of my clothes, my laptop, and a few personal items. Before I left, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the dresser. It didn't feel right to take it with me. It didn't mean anything anymore. To me, that ring symbolized everything I had tried to protect in our marriage. But now, it was nothing more than a reminder of her betrayal. I didn't write a note. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't owe her that. With one last look at the house that had once been my home, I opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it behind me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I ended up staying for a few weeks in hotels before I moved into a small, quiet apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom space with plain walls and old furniture. But at least it was mine, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe again. She started texting me the next day. At first, the messages were apologetic, things like, "I'm sorry, can we talk?" and "I made a mistake." But as I ignored her, they became more desperate. She even tried calling me several times, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up. Every time her name flashed on my phone, I felt the anger rise in me again. I had begged her to talk to me before it came to this, to tell me what was wrong, to stop what she was doing. She didn't. Now she wanted to fix things because she was scared of the consequences, not because she truly cared about what she had done to me. Her messages started to shift. She said things like, "If our families find out, it'll ruin everything," or "Please, let's just talk before this gets worse." It became clear to me that her biggest fear wasn't losing me. It was how people would see her if the truth came out. That hurt more than anything. I realized then that she wasn't sorry for cheating. She was sorry she got caught. As the days passed, I started to feel a strange sense of peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that comes from being happy. It was more like relief. I didn't have to wonder anymore. Didn't have to lie to myself about what was happening in my own marriage. I knew the truth now, and while it was painful, it also set me free. I decided to file for divorce. The idea of ending our marriage was hard, but staying in it felt impossible. I couldn't spend the rest of my life with someone I couldn't trust, someone who had chosen to betray me even after I gave her every chance to stop. I made an appointment with a lawyer and started the process. It felt surreal, signing papers to end something that had once meant everything to me. But I knew it was the right thing to do. A marriage built on lies and betrayal isn't a marriage at all. It's a facade, and I wasn't willing to live that way. When I look back on everything, I realize how much I tried to save our marriage. I wasn't perfect, I know that. But I loved her, and I thought we could work through anything as long as we were honest with each other. That's what hurt the most, not just the affair, but the lies. Every time I asked her if something was wrong, she looked me in the eye and said, "Nothing." I begged her to talk to me, to tell me if she was unhappy. I even told her I'd be willing to go to therapy, but she kept pushing me away. Finding out the truth was like a knife to the chest. I had to watch the person I loved betray me over and over again in those photos. Even after I caught her, she didn't stop. She could have chosen our marriage, but she didn't. In the end, I realized I had to pick myself. I wonder sometimes if I'll ever be able to trust marriage again. People change, and their hearts wander. It's terrifying to think you can give someone your everything, only for them to turn around and throw it away. I've started wondering if anyone is capable of truly staying loyal. Is it human nature to grow bored and want more than you have? Or was it just her? Was I unlucky, or does everyone eventually face this? But as painful as this has been, I've learned something important. If nothing else, this taught me that I deserve more. I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who values me as much as I value them. I won't settle for less again. I can't. When I signed the divorce papers, it wasn't easy. I knew I'd lose a lot, not just money but memories. The house we made a home, the things we built together over the years, it all felt like it was slipping away. But I also knew staying would cost me even more. It would cost me my dignity, peace, and ability to trust anyone again. If you're listening to this, I want to ask you, what would you do if you were in my shoes? If you found the person you trusted most was lying to you, sneaking around behind your back, and choosing someone else, what would you do? Would you try to fix it, knowing they might do it again? Or would you walk away to protect yourself, even if it breaks your heart? For me, I begged her to stop. She chose not to. And now I choose myself.